Good afternoon to everybody present here for the third day of the conference and the second paper presentation session. My name is Mir Masudul Haq. I'll be coordinating this session along with Mritika with me. And for this session, we are honored to have Dr. Banushree. I will just briefly, as we are running out of time, I will just briefly introduce her, and then I will hand the session over to her. So welcome you all the participants and attendees. Our chair for the session, Dr. Banushree. The session is titled as the Digital Folklore Transition and Prospects. And our chair for the session, Dr. Banushree, completed her BA English honors from Amity University, Noida, MA English and Communicative Studies, and PhD from Guru Gobind Singh Indraprastha University, New Delhi. Her PhD thesis explored bandishes of khayal composed by Niamat Khan Sadrang and Firoz Khan Adrang. From a socio-cultural perspective, her fundamentals training in Hindustani music given by her mother and awareness of literary theories equipped her to perform interdisciplinary research and khayal composition. With this, thank you, Dr. Banushree. I will now hand it over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mir. Okay, I'm very delighted to be a part of it, and I consider it an honor. So I think we can start with our first presenter. The title is Upon Thinking About Southist Syrian Christian Folklore in the Digital Age. So Miss Anne, are you ready?
I am ready. Thank you.
Okay, please start.
So I will just briefly introduce Anne. She is, for the attendees, she is an assistant professor in Jesus and Mary College, and also doing her PhD from Jamia, I guess.
Jamia Millia.
Jamia Millia University. Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Mir. And thank you, Dr. Banushree. As I begin my presentation today, of course, I begin by thanking the organizers of the first International Young Folklorist Conference. As always, one researching in the field is looking for more avenues to present at, to get feedback from, and it has been slightly difficult in the area of folklore studies so far. And I'm so happy to know that there is a very positive, energetic and well-organized initiative that I see here towards the same. So thank you again for this opportunity. Is my screen visible?
Yes, it is.
Perfect. Right. All right, great. So to begin with, as you can see, I'm trying to think about folklore in the digital age. And I would like to sort of lay the groundwork for some of the points that I will be mentioning today in my presentation. Of course, on the screen, you can see I put some key terms which often gets associated with folklore, and of course was integral in the early conceptions of folklore. What we will go on to do is try to see how we can change, revisit these paradigms towards a more evolutionary concept of folklore in folklore studies of folkloristics. So by the late 20th century and early 21st century, scholastic horizons of Western folkloristics witnesses a significant shift as it takes cognizance of the new avenues of folklore emergence and dissemination, which is the internet. With the opening of the World Wide Web for public use and consumption since 1992, we see that the internet becomes an active conduit of interactive, personalized, and novel communication practices. As always, critical scholarship responded to this in two ways. On the one hand, you had, of course, what is largely represented in literary theory as the Frankfurt School, looking at the technological advancements that is brought in through the internet as alienating and potentially serving the interests of just the hegemonic class. So there is a sense of disbelief with which one school of thought will look at the internet. And from folklore, the quarters of folklore studies, you also have scholars such as John Dost and Richard Dawson initially echoing similar suspicions of the internet with respect to folklore as they then understood it. However, what is interesting and more promising is the other school of critical scholarship, which includes folklore scholars such as Alan Dundas, John Dost, Nancy K. Bayham, because you see John Dost also later revises his stance, as well as Barbara Krishenblatt Gimblett, who will now look at these new technological advancements as avenues to, kind of further folkloristic and inquiry. So as you can see, the last pointer in the slide is talking about this idea of the devolutionary premise. And this is again from a very famous and well quoted essay from Dundas, which talks about how,
Sorry to
folklore is now
interrupt,
devolving. Yeah.
I'm sorry. Actually, it was not visible. Your slides are not moving. Could you please?
It's not moving. Oh,
No,
okay.
no.
Let me try again. Can you see the current slide now? Oh, it's still not moving.
Actually.
Okay. Should I then just... Now is it moving?
It's shifting very quickly. It's going to the first slide, then again shifting back.
Now it's steady. I'm holding it steady. Do you think it's better?
Now it's
Yes.
visible.
You can see the slide title, What is Folklore?
Yeah.
Perfect. Right. So that's where I'm at, right? So the devolutionary, thank you for pointing that out. So the which underlie folklore study that now can be countered or seen as potentially, managed by thinking of the new grounds or new areas in which folklore emerges. So what you see along with this promise or this hope is to posit the internet as offering new dimensions of not just folklore transmission, but for folklore creation, right? So what you also see alongside is then a certain kind of reconceptualization of folklore, which requires a fundamental rethinking of parameters of location, tradition, and community building that had existed before. So some of the questions that we see here are questions that one, of course, has to posit when one is thinking of digitality and folklore, because folklore has always been identified as oral, rooted, physical, in-person, face-to-face exchange, etc., etc. So what happens now when you think of folklore in the internet space? You do see redefinitions, such as when Alan Dundas would say that the term folklore, and I'm quoting him, the term folk can refer to any group of people whatsoever who share at least one common factor. Similarly, Richard Bauman would say that folk should be thought of as members of particular groups or social categories who may exchange folklore with each other on the basis of a shared identity or with others on the basis of differential identity. So one can see that in both these definitional revisions, the conceptual emphasis on the subject of folkloristics, that is folklore, shifts away from paradigms associated with face-to-face interactions, physical proximity of the folk, to that of shared traditions, expressions, and creativity, and a sense of community that is achieved through them. Consequently, the budding field of digital folkloristics pays attention not only to the, or rather paid attention, not only to the presence of traditional folklore in the digital medium, but also looks at emergent folkloric traditions in the interactive and participatory networks of digital media, which is now made accessible through emails, blogs, discussion forums, social networking sites, etc., etc. Runner, who, of course, we had the pleasure of listening to yesterday, really does a lot of work in terms of thinking about digitality and folklore. You may want to have a look at it if you have the time and if you're interested. So therefore, two aspects become important here. One is that you see the rearticulation of the internet as a source of vernacular expression as opposed to simply conduits of mass communication. Secondly, you also see the reconceptualization of the internet as a new site of cultural production and community formation. Thus, popular digital phenomena such as chain mails, internet jokes, blog posts, all of them, internet lingo, all of them become new emerging folklore genres, right? So there is now a kind of a reconceptualization that happens here. If one is interested, there is also another field of folkloristics which is already blooming, which is known as computational folkloristics. Unfortunately, I don't think that we have any scholars working in the field in India, but Timothy R. Tangerlini and Peter M. Broadwell has written extensively about it. Now, coming to my subject, of course, is to look at the folklore of Southist Syrian Christians. This is a small collective, a minority collective of Christians in Kerala. This community is part of St. Thomas Christians. Some of you may have heard about St. Thomas Christians in Kerala. And this particular community, which is a subsection of St. Thomas Christians, has a distinct history of migration in the 4th century AD from Mesopotamia to Malabar, which is the then Kerala, under the leadership of a merchant. His name is Knaithama. As I mentioned, it's a small population. The community believes that they have a distinct ethnic identity because of the fact that they migrated in the pre-modern period. Therefore, it's an endogamous community. They continue to marry from within to make sure that the bloodline is kept pure. This community is also known as Tekumbagar or Knanaya Christians, if you would like to look them up. And apart from the endogamous practices that happens within the community, the folklore of the community is a very distinct one and a very, very interesting and heterogeneous domain. We don't have, of course, time to really talk about it in detail, but you can look at the various genres that one has identified. You have folk songs, folk traditions, which are, kind of performed primarily as part of wedding rituals. You also have food, clothing, and other distinct folkloric elements there. Moving on, I am, of course, looking at, very broadly. If you look here, you can look at the entry of folklore into media, right? Any kind of media. So you look at 20th century, it becomes these folk songs will now move from the domain of oral transmission to print. Later, they get, by the end of the 20th century, they get recorded in cassette tapes. And then, of course, the internet is opened up. And then you have these folklore materials entering into the internet domain. So this is very important to understand this trajectory of Southist folk songs. Now, I am, of course, only talking about, for the purpose of my presentation, I am classifying digital engagement of Southist folklore in 2 ways. One, of course, is through a church-authorized website known as Knanayology. And secondly, I'm looking at the vernacular domain of digital folklore, which emerges through YouTube, social media sites, informal blog posts, etc., etc. And I'm distinctly charting both because both have different ways in which they function. In the case of Knanayology, which is again a website which is established by the Southist Church, it comes into being in 2019. It is an institutionalized attempt to carve representation for Southist identity and culture in the digital landscape. As you can see, this website is, kind of aligned with other attendant Southist specific websites, such as matrimonial sites, digital magazines, etc., etc. Right? So there's a whole host of church-controlled website, which is seen as the authentic, legitimate source of Southist folklore and Southist folk knowledge, traditional knowledge. This is, of course, an interface of Knanayology. Now, I have a couple of points to kind of quickly mention here. One is that the purpose of this website is primarily to make available several articles related to Knanaya identity, recordings of several folk songs, the digitization of early texts of folk songs, various church history textbooks, etc., etc., where the hope of this intention of the website is to create itself as of course, it's an ethical gesture which is arched towards the preservation of Southist knowledge, to disseminate the knowledge of the folk community, as also to preserve the community. And today, Southists have scattered globally. So you're also looking at a lot of diasporic Southists who will come back to this website from various parts in the world to listen to songs, engage with the songs, etc., etc. So there is that ethical gesture of preservation, of wanting everyone from all over the world to engage with the folklore. The second aspect here is that the digitization through Knanayology is also seen as a mode of maintaining the relevance and legitimacy of folk culture and the folk community, of course, by extension, in wider academic and public discourses. What you therefore see is how this website is engaged in processes of formalization or traditionalization of Southist folklore. And you can see that actually in the manner in which the interface itself is presented. For those of you who may know, some of the individuals, that is, one is Knai Toma, one is the church leader, you will see that the website is really, kind of built on visual representations and visual markers of the church, right? So there is an attempt to traditionalize it. There is an attempt to claim authentic folklore. And what is interesting is, again, it connects back to what Professor Bronner was talking about in terms of the heritage, heritageization of folklore, right? So that is what you see here. The last remark about the website, and of course these are many, many points, but the last remark is also that when you press some of the folk song books in this website, you will see that they have used what is known as a flip binder. So it gives you a certain illusion of reading a book, flipping through the pages. And I would think that the website's choice of a flip binder software to render digitized text is, of course, an interactive dimension which mimics the reading practices by artificially reproducing visual and auditory effects associated with page turning as the reader moves through the digitized books, despite, of course, the absence of it. Thus, the digitized texts of Knanayology, in more ways than one, do not displace the authority of the printed text, but also arguably borrows from it. So there is a lot of interesting intermediate interactions that happens here. But anyway, the point here is that you have one active mode of knowledge transmission that happens through the internet, through in the form of this website, which makes available the content, the folklore content, for people all over the world in a very controlled, legitimate so-called manner, right? So it's a
Sorry
kind
to
of a
interrupt,
top-down.
and yeah, can you please conclude in a minute?
Sure. Just a minute more, if you will allow me. The second is to look at the alternate digital spaces, right? And this is where I wanted to kind of comment about. This is something one needs to study further. You will see that there is an entire realm of folklorism which has emerged through the alternate digital spaces, which is people's Instagram posts, YouTube recordings, all of that, where terms, hashtags such as KNA, AD345, royal blood, all of this is used by individuals. What I would argue, of course, is that distinctly from the top-down model of Knanayology, you see a more horizontal zigzag network kind of interaction that emerges through alternate digital spaces, which is more vernacular than the website of Knanayology. And last point is, of course, that these become in themselves new modes of or new kinds of folklore, right? And secondly, of course, they are often driven not by by the realm of affect, emotion, contestations, pride, unlike, of course, how you typically think of written works or contents that gets posted in Knanayology, which is premeditated. But anyway, lack of time, I'm concluding here. The simple argument that I'm making here is to not just think of digital as only a medium or conduit for folklore, but think of it as a site of folklore creation. Think of new folksonomies which are formed in the internet. And I would think that this will give us new disciplinary directions in our inquiries. Thank you very much, and sorry for exceeding the time.
So can we have our next presenter? It is by Vaishali, Miss Vaishali Biduri. The topic of her presentation the title is Rhythmic Resonance, Haryanvi Ragni in the Era of Social Media.
Yes. Just I am trying to present. Let me just give me a minute, please, okay? Is my screen visible?
It went at your back.
It is set in your background. The
Oh,
PPT is set
set.
in your.
Oh, let me just. I'm trying how to do this. It's my first time for online presentation. I'm having issues.
Ritika, do you have that PPT? Rusha, I think you have that PPT. It's a large PPT.
Actually, her PPT size is very large. It
Yes.
couldn't
Yes,
be
I have a
downloaded.
lot of videos.
Okay, can we have the next presenter by that time? I'm fixing it.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
okay.
Vaishali, would you please wait for a while?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, then we will move on to our next presenter. She is from Central University of Gujarat, Miss Pallavi Singh, PhD scholar. Her title of the presentation is Maithili Folk Songs in a New Bottle.
Good afternoon, all. Am I audible?
Yeah.
You are.
Okay, I'll print. Are you able to see the screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, just a moment. So I'll begin my presentation. I'll read from the paper. Until about the mid-20th century, folk song performance was part of the everyday. Can you all see the screen?
Yes. Yes. It is.
Okay.
In the first title page, it is.
Yeah, okay. Now I'll move on. Sorry. So women used to sing, learn, and transmit the song from one person to another while doing repetitive tasks such as cooking, washing, working in fields, and attending formal and informal gatherings. The ubiquities of these songs decreased as the end of the 20th century approached. By this time, many folk song compilations were printed to fill this gap of the vanishing presence of the folk songs. As mentioned in the preface of these compilations, the central premise was to make the people of Mithila aware of the rich tradition of the folk songs. These compilations lamented the loss of the tradition of singing and presented a means to make the songs easily accessible to those interested in singing. Most of all, these compilations were meant to preserve the oral tradition of singing folk songs. Therefore, it was around this time that oral tradition was actively being preserved in the form of print. The transfer from oral to print came with challenges, singing songs as part of everyday life in the villages. Of the vanishing tradition of the singing of folk songs was mainly aimed at the people living in the urban areas. Why did such a difference in the case of folk songs manifest between rural and urban areas? The difference was due to the disparity in the everyday living in these two areas. For instance, in the urban areas, the rituals, especially around marriage ceremonies, were limited to fewer days and events. This change needs to be kept in mind while looking at the changes faced by the tradition of singing of the folk songs from the late 20th century onwards. Another impact of shifting the tradition of singing of folk songs from rural to urban areas was the displacement of many rituals. The rural culture with its ritualistic living base was not to be found in the working lives of the city. However, the shifting of tradition did not uniformly impact all types of folk songs in the women's songs repertoire. Various types in the repertoire could be analyzed to have their own transformation trajectory. For instance, Samdauni and Bhajans transitioned without much trouble, while the abusive songs Gari, which occupied a special place in the rural folk song repertoire, became a rare type found in the urban areas around this time. In the 20th century, 21st century, abusive songs are no longer part of marriage song rituals in urban areas. So much so that many from the present time are unaware of their existence in the folk song tradition of the Maithili language. Displacement of ritual did not just occur due to the transition from rural to urban. The displacement of rituals happened due to the changes occurring in the everyday of the rural areas too. One of the areas where folk song was sung most is during marriage ceremonies. While the essential part of the ceremony remains unchanged to some extent, the number of rituals performed before and after the ceremony has reduced drastically. In Mithila, there is a ritual called Chauthari. This ritual is performed after the 4th day of the marriage ceremony. This ritual entails that the newlywed are married again on this day. In the recent past, the Bharat used to stay in the bride's place or village for at least 4 days. These 4 days were filled with rituals and other hustle and bustle. The ritual of Chauthari is now rare in urban setting. Even in the village setting, the Bharat seldom has time to stay for 4 days. Economic factors also make caring for more than 100 people for 4 days challenging.
I'm sorry
Another
to interrupt
significant
you, Pallavi. Are you shifting your PPT or you were just stuck in your first page? It's
No,
not moving.
I know. I am aware of that, but it
Okay,
is
okay,
going
okay,
with my
please
begin.
go
It
on.
is
Sorry, I'm sorry.
okay. Another significant change in the marriage ceremony of our times is that now women can accompany the Bharat. The age-old traditions of Mithila forbade the women of the groom's household, especially the groom's mother, to accompany the Bharat and attend her son's wedding, which took place in the bride's household and or village. This tradition thus entailed that all the male family members and the near and distant cousin of the grooms become part of his entourage. Also, the bride's village often differed from the groom's village. Therefore, all the male members travel, leaving the women in the groom's household behind. This was a big concern as men were supposed to protect the household. Also, since the groom's house was gearing up for celebration, there were threats of thieves. The village women would congregate in the groom's house to ward off this predicament and sing and dance the night. This ritual was sometimes called Domkach because one of the songs exclusive for this occasion was called Domkach. This ritual is now extinct as the women travel with the groom, thus the need for this ritual is displaced. Domkach belonged to women's social space and it was attended and performed exclusively by the females and for the females. This ritual involved singing and dancing all night and contained many songs. It included bhajans and other fun songs. Domkach was one among them. The subject of the songs was teasing. Married women were teased about their time with their husband. Sometimes these songs also included abusive songs. Domkach was primarily a dance performance and not just singing. One characteristic of this performance was that the women dressed up as men and enacted the teasing sequence. After the displacement of this ritual, it has ceased to exist in this context. Folk song compilations hardly contain any Domkach songs now. It exists in the oral tradition of the women of age. However, Maithili Domkach can now be accessed on social media platforms. There are some Domkach songs present. It can be said that the use of social media has saved an almost extinct type. However, this paper does not deal with a lament of the lost performance of Domkach, nor does it celebrate its transformation. This paper deals with the issue of analyzing the transmission of a folk song type from one platform to another. It also endeavors to understand what kind of transformation the type goes due to the platform jump. As has already been mentioned, Domkach is an all-women festival. However, when we search for Domkach on social media platforms such as YouTube, the search generates songs which do not fit the above-mentioned characteristic features of the type. The dance performance features male dancers beside the female dancers. Apart from this, the dance is an act of teasing the woman by a male. The woman is teased for not knowing her husband's whereabouts. Also, the song hints at the caste involvement. Domkach was a drag performance. Apart from this, it was not associated with any caste. It was associated with the above-mentioned ritual performed in the household of any caste. Thus, a new perception is created now. It would not be surprising if the present time remembers the evolution of this type at all. The songs viewer need to be made aware of the backstory and characteristic of this type. Thus, the focus should be on analyzing the addition or subtraction of the meanings that occur due to the transmission of the type from ritualistic performance to commercial to social media. Such analysis is necessary to prevent the women folk song tradition from suffering from historical amnesia. Apart from generating amnesia, the transition of folk songs away from the ritualistic performance creates gap, while contributing towards its accessibility. Both the gap creation and the issue of accessibility needs to be analyzed. What is entailed by the accessibility of the folk song types on social media platforms? To whom are these songs becoming accessible? The songs are becoming accessible to everyone on social media who are there for many reasons. These people are mostly the ones who may not participate in performing these songs. For instance, men folk or housewife in the urban city. They are viewers. The performance on social media platform does not contribute to the ritualistic performance. They generate a certain consensus about it. One of the significant issues with the transmission of the folk song on social media platform is that it is once removed from the age-old format of the performance of these songs. On these platforms, the performance is presented, depicted, or acted under choreographed conditions and is not performed. It is plucked from being part of everyday life and converted to be a simulation of everyday. Compared to social media, the folk song compilations still preserve these songs within the everyday category by making it a compendium to be used and referred to while performing the rituals. The acting of these songs presented on YouTube unbounded the song of the strict formalities of ritualistic performance. It is an act and not an actual performance of the ritual tradition. Thus, the phenomena of accessibility caters to the purpose for which folk songs were not intended to be accessed. Also, removing the folk songs from their ritualistic performance and presenting them through social media platform creates gap where different meanings related to the song type can be generated. This point
Pallavi, sorry to interrupt, but you are running out of time. Can we just conclude in a couple of minutes?
Okay. So the thing is basically the idea of heritage, and heritage is getting attached to these kind of viewings on YouTube postings, which is kind of little bit problematic, especially when we don't even know the kind of backstory of the genre. The another aspect is that from on the YouTube, the many folk singers are being presented as a brand. For example, the best example is the rise of the brand Maithili Thakur. Maithili Thakur is a renowned singer who gained prominence due to her popularity on Facebook and on YouTube by singing Maithili and Bhojpuri folk songs. She mentions the role of folks for social media platform in her rise in a TED talk. So basically, she is basically singing about so many types of songs, Samdauni, Sohar, and other marriage-related songs, but these are all basically choreographed songs. They are away from ritualistic performance. So the point is that when we are looking at these kind of transformation, we need to be aware of how the meaning is shifting from the ritualistic performance to what is being conveyed through these postings. It's basically that, like, so that we if any type or genre is being transferred, we should know the backstory. So the analysis of from the folklore perspective should also cater to that aspect also. That's it. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, Pallavi, ma'am. Now, I hope our previous presenter is ready now, Ms. Vaishali Viduri.
Vaishali, are you there?
Vaishali, you are not audible.
Dr. Banushree, we can go to Sylvia, and then we come to
Yeah.
Vaishali.
Okay, yeah, sure. So yes, we will go to Sylvia Sagolsem, if I'm pronouncing it right. The title of this presentation is Reinventing Tradition, Exploring Digital Transitions of Manipuri Phungawari on YouTube.
Right. Okay. Thank you, Dr. Cosmodis, for introducing the title of my paper. So, first of all, a very good afternoon to everybody. I would like to thank the organizers of this conference at the CFSR for giving me this opportunity to present my paper. My name is Dr. Sylvia Sagolsem. I hold a PhD from the Center for English Studies, Jawaharlal Nehru University, New Delhi. And currently, I'm a fellow at the Center for Advanced Internet Studies, CAIS, at Bochum, Germany. So my presentation today actually is a work in progress, which is a small but a very important part of my current postdoctoral research. And it is titled A Reinventing Tradition, Exploring Digital Transitions of Manipuri Phungawari on YouTube. So my presentation today is located at the intersection of traditional folklore and digital cultures. Therefore, my presentation attempts to explore this particular trajectory of locating emergent online / digital materialities of Phungawari on digital platforms, specifically on YouTube. And relevant case studies will be discussed as I proceed with my presentation. I will begin by briefly outlining the term Phungawari to sort of introduce this term. And I presume that many of you must not be aware of this term, and you're being introduced to it for the first time. So I'd like to take some time to flesh out its meaning, its context, its relevance, and significance, especially within the scope and the theme of this particular conference that is on transition and transformation in South Asian folklore. Sorry, I just completely forgot about my PowerPoint. I do have a PowerPoint. Let me just try and share that. Just give me a moment. You have to grant me permission. I think I can't share my screen.
You have already eased that restriction.
It says I can't share my screen. You must grant. Okay, let me just try something. Just one moment, please.
Please.
Okay. Or may I just email you the PowerPoint, and can you just show it for me? I think that would be faster because I have to get into the settings and everything. Instead of that, I'll just email it to you quickly.
Can you do that in WhatsApp too? Like, can you access WhatsApp from your
laptop? Yes, WhatsApp. Okay, I don't have my PowerPoint on my phone, so it'll be easier for me. Yeah.
Okay,
can I just
mail it then. Ritika,
can I email it to the
please.
Folklore Studies Network? That email ID.
The CFSR.
Yeah. Okay, 1 second, please.
Are you there in the WhatsApp group? It will be easier.
No, I think she doesn't have that access on her laptop. Yeah.
Okay, no problem.
So sorry about this. Yeah,
It's okay.
I'm just sending it to you. I have just sent it. Can you please check the email?
The mail ID is cfsryfc2024@gmail.com. cfsryfc2024@gmail.com.
Yeah, that's the one.
But we're yet to have the mail thing.
Okay,
That
just
What we can do, like Sylvia, you start introducing.
I'll just continue with my presentation, and I think you must have got it by now. Can you please refresh and check?
As soon as we get it, we'll present it. Yeah.
Yeah, I've sent it. Please let me know. Okay, so let me just continue with my presentation for now. So the term Phungawari is actually a portmanteau. It's a combination of two terms, of two distinct words, Phunga plus Wari. So Phunga means the hearth or the fireplace, and Wari means a tale or a story. So it renders the collective meaning of the term as tales associated with the hearth, or stories told around the hearth or fireplace. So Phungawari are traditionally, they are narrated by the grandparents or elders of a family to the young folks, to children, to entertain as well as to educate them, and to also keep them awake as they wait their dinner or this till supper time. So these traditional tales are also, they are defined by their qualifying characteristic of this association with the Phunga, which is the hearth or the fireplace, which is a very sacred space in every Meitei household. So, and the family as a unit revolves around that Phunga, the sacred space. Thereby, this underscores the socio-cultural as well as religious significance of this kind of tales, and the customary storytelling practices that revolve around this sacred space, and also how this etymology is linked to that. And this emphasizes the traditional, the cultural and shared communal values that such kind of tales embody for the indigenous Meitei community. Coming to the functions of Phungawari briefly. So as I've already mentioned, they entertain, but they also educate its listeners. And as B. Jayankumar Sharma said, they are the torch bearers of our age-old knowledges. Can you please move to slide number 3 for this particular? Yeah, slide number 3, please. Yeah, that's the one. Thank you. So as I was saying, B. Jayankumar Sharma says that they are the torchbearer of our age-old civilization, embodying transgenerational knowledges. These tales carry encoded socio-emotional cultural meanings and functions that symbolize expressions of folk identity. As such, Phungawari represents a critical knowledge system that is symbiotically tied with people's self-representation through such folkloric expressions. And this is of particular significance for indigenous cultures and for indigenous peoples that struggle with complex cultural histories and lived experiences of marginalization, of misrepresentation and misappropriation in this so-called post-colonial context. So under such circumstances, folkloric traditions and folk narrative forms, such as the Phungawari of the indigenous Meiteis of Manipur, they are not just mere stories or folk tales for that matter. They are actually powerful cultural apparatus for meaningful representation, for meaningful collective representation and derivation of indigeneity. And also in this particular storytelling culture and practices around Phungawari, this ensures the continuity, the cultural continuity and the survivance of the community. Hence, storytelling here in this case is not just very simple, straightforward, disseministic process, of just relaying stories from one person to another person or from one generation to another generation. Rather, storytelling here becomes a process and a method of performance of transgenerational indigenous epistemology. This establishes the social and cultural roles of traditional tales and storytelling practices of Phungawari, and not just Phungawari, but other such indigenous traditional folk narrative forms at large. Can we please move to the next slide? So briefly about the oral and the written tradition of Phungawari. So there's this common understanding that Phungawari is a part of a larger oral tradition, folkloric tradition of Manipur, but it's also simultaneously true that Phungawari is very much a part of the rich written tradition of Manipur. So native Manipuri folklorist S. Sanatombi, she points out that just as the heart, this is a very important and very interesting point, because we are talking about stories that revolve around the hearth and the fireplace. The whole storytelling culture revolves around the hearth. But because of changing, social structures, and because of urbanization, and because of the digital era that we live in, people don't just sit around the fireplace and tell stories to each other. That kind of dynamics and that kind of practice has undergone drastic transformation, right? So the hearth has been replaced by modern appliances. People don't use the firewood, and people don't seek the warmth of fire from actual firewood. There's the electric stove, there's a gas stove, and etc., etc. So the traditional storytelling culture also obviously has been impacted by this change and this transformation. And but what is very interesting here is that because the firewood, because the fireplace is no longer there, does it mean that the stories revolve around the fireplace? Has that also been negatively impacted? Is it a disappearing tradition? What about that? So to address that question, S. Anatombi points out a very interesting, and very important potential of folklore, which is that it is not monolithic. It's not something that is stuck in time, that doesn't change, or it has or is unable to adapt or change itself. So Phungawari may be considered an oral tradition, but it is also something that has influenced a larger culture, which comprises of the written as well as the digital culture, which is what I'm going to come to as the highlight of my presentation. Can we please move to the next slide? So the absence of the heart, as I was saying, does not imply the demise of Phungawari or the storytelling culture. And while oral tradition may remain the foremost form of knowledge transmission in the region, Manipur has a very rich written literary culture that dates back to the 14th, 15th century, and we have our own indigenous script as well. And the preservation of culture, of history, of our identity began way back. It was something that was a task, a very sacred task taken up by the learned scholars, by the Maichos. And during the colonial period, now I'm going to sort of just jump to the colonial period. I'm talking about the 19th century here. So during the colonial period, in 1891, the Kingdom of Manipur was defeated in the Anglo-British, in the Anglo-Manipur War. And that period, following that defeat and the takeover by the British colonialists, is marked as the colonial era of folklore studies or ethnic studies in Manipur. That is marked by colonial knowledge production, and by that I mean how this kind of knowledge production was led by political agents, by British ethnologists and archaeologists, etc., who produced monographs on Manipur, who also took up the very interesting and very important task of translating scripts and stories and folk tales and Phungawaris from the vernacular into the English language. And following that, the post-colonial period, is also something that is deemed by native scholars as the academic phase, which is wherein this kind of knowledge production around folklore was taken up head-on by the indigenous scholars themselves. In fact, in 1956, this first ever published collection of folk tales of Manipur was, it came to be in existence. Next slide, please. Slide number 6. This is the most important section of my presentation, where I will be talking about the convergence of something that is deemed tradition with something that is deemed as modern or modernity, which is embodied by technology, by digital platforms. So we are all aware of the fact that folklore has always been sort of there has been this pervasive these ideas about folklore being something oral, something to do with face-to-face communication, and the orality as its primary qualifier. But there were certain alarm-sounding claims in the 20th century that sort of predicted the demise or the deaths of folklore, that the disappearing tradition, that with technology and with internet, folklore is going to disappear. However, contrary to that, we see that folklore is not just surviving, but it's actually thriving and doing very well for itself. And this is the point that I will be sort of illustrating and going into deeper here. Next slide, please. So transmediality of Phungawari. So historical transitions and technological innovations of Phungawari, they exhibit a phenomenon that I call transmedial phenomenon. It covers print media, electronic and broadcast media, from radio to television to even theater, and most recently and most interestingly, new media platforms based on Web 2.0. This is can you please move to slide number 8? So what we see here on the slide is actually the opening credit of the animation film Kaibu Kayoiba. So Kaibu Kayoiba is the name of the tale of the Phungawari, which is the case in reference, and how this particular Phungawari has seen multiple adaptations and remediations across different platforms and different media, from print to digital as well, and with internet technology most recently. So this is actually a full-length animation feature film, the first of its kind, which was produced in 2009, and it's available on YouTube. If anyone is interested, you can check that out. So this is a remediated text, one of the many remediated texts based on the Phungawari Kaibu Kayoiba. There's also, and the popularity of this particular Phungawari is such that it has seen multiple renditions in the form of graphic comic books, visual illustrations, both in print and digital versions. In fact, this particular graphic comic book that I have here is based on Kaibu Kayoiba. This was released in 2020 in print as well as in the digital version on Instagram. So since I will not be taking up the platform Instagram today, I'll be sticking to YouTube, but just to sort of bring that into the loop here. Then can we move on to the next slide, please? So this is a YouTube channel. Now I'll be referring to a set of YouTube channels which are actively in the engaged in this cultural production, in this process of cultural production, wherein this traditional Phungawaris are being remediated, adapted, and reinvented on YouTube as a digital on YouTube here on the digital platform. So this YouTube channel named Pupu's Folk TV was created in 2017, and at present it stands at around 5 lakh subscribers, and it's one of the most the diverse set of subscriber base. I know that because as part of my methodology, I also conduct semi-structured interviews with the content creators, and that is a very important aspect of my of this particular ongoing work. I'll refer to the questions a little bit later. So let me just finish my presentation. So in a semi-structured interview that I conducted with the creator, with the founder of this particular YouTube channel, his name is Atom Shanti. So he gave an account of the very humble beginning of this channel, which was primarily inspired by as it is obvious here, by Phungawari. It was inspired by the tales that were narrated by his grandfather when he was a young boy. And in Maithili language, quite coincidentally and very meaningfully so, Pupu means grandfather. And so that's the name of the channel is dedicated in the memory of the grandfather, and who is also given the role, the symbolic role of passing down such kind of traditional transgenerational knowledges to younger generation. So this underscores the role of the elders within this age-old tradition. And in communicating the larger vision and purpose of his YouTube channel, as well, he also has a Facebook page, which I'm just quickly referring to that, which has been sponsored by Meta. So this was part of Meta's initiative to rope in or to bring YouTube content creators and introduce them to Meta to Facebook as a platform as well. And last but not least, Atom Shanti did share his personal thought. And if I may say, his personal agenda or objective in establishing this particular channel is the wider dissemination of Phungawari through animation, and that the highlight is not aesthetic so much as it is the task of making sure that Phungawari stay alive in the digital media, in the digital version. So with that, the next slide, please. This is the team. For your reference, and on the right you can see that they are very busy. This behind the scene of them developing yet another of one of their YouTube videos based on Phungawari. Slide 12, please. Yeah, so this is just a thumbnail of some of their most popularly viewed videos. And as you can see, this is not the one I was referring to, the previous one. It's this one. So you can see that they've got millions of views. So the popularity of their videos and their connection with the audience is not really in question here. It's quite pretty self-evident here. So the next slide, please. So this is another one of the YouTube channels. This is called Kanglerol TV. This was created in 2021, and at present it has around 11K subscribers. And the channel description reads as Kanglerol TV stems from the original folk tales, the folklore, the epic, and the history from Manipur. And every episode has a special authentic ornamentation, the combination of folk art, folk music, and folk tales, a rich variety of folk tales and folklores. When it comes to Manipur, and their folk tales, this is a land of diverse religions, of diverse languages and cultures, and has a complete range of tales and short stories. So this brief bio also falls in line with the theme of how folk tales, Phungawari of the Maithili, is the highlight of such kind of YouTube channels and their popularity and their connection with the larger audience. The next,
Sylvia.
I'm going to wrap it up just very quickly, just few more, just one more minute. Yeah, thank you. So I'll just quickly, can you just quickly just show the slides? It's just a set of YouTube channels that I just wanted to share with the audience. So these are some of the case studies that I wanted to share with everybody. So lastly, let me just come to the conclusion of my presentation. So this one. Thank you. So for the conclusion, I would like to say that there's this shifting paradigm on YouTube, which we can very well witness, and which we are, as a community, we are part of, and we are witnessing. This is an evolving digital culture based on something that is traditional. As such, it can be argued that Phungawari as user-generated content, these are amateur producers and users who have turned into prosumers. They are now creating content themselves, and then this user-generated creative content on YouTube, this embodies the convergence of something which is considered oral tradition of folklore with digital technology, with digital media platforms. And as a platform, most notably recognized for its participatory culture, YouTube has been a side of this very interactive and thriving cultural economy, which is led by these users, by these amateur producers and prosumers. And such remediated Phungawari on YouTube, they carry implications beyond just mere dissemination of this kind of folklore. For indigenous people, our traditional narratives are very important. They are part of our culture and of our indigeneity and our identity. And it holds within these stories worldviews, knowledges, and values of the people, of the community. And all of these fundamental aspects are, encoded as well as shared when we see it being digitized and it being remediated on such kind of digital platforms. Thank you. With that, I conclude my presentation.
Thank you so much, Sylvia. So I hope we will be able to listen to our next presenter, Vaishali Biduri.
Yes. Can I try once more to present my screen? Yeah.
Vaishali, it's a request from our part as we are running late time. So please be brief as much as possible. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. Sure. Let me just try once more. Okay.
And meanwhile, any questions that are raised in the chat box, participants are requested to answer that. Presenters and attendees can also ask the question in the chat box. We'll not have time to attend question. Thank you.
Is my screen visible?
No, Vaishali, it's not visible.
No, this is not visible.
I think Ritika can do that. You just start your presentation.
Is this visible now?
Vaishali,
Yeah,
Mritika is presenting. You just
no,
instruct.
this is Vaishali's presentation going on.
Oh, okay. Sorry. It's visible. It's visible. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So I will continue with my presentation. By the way, sorry for all the glitches and bearing with me. So the title of my presentation is Rhythmic Resonance, Haryanvi Ragini in the Era of Social Media. But first, I would like to give a little introduction to Haryana and its folk culture. Haryana got its statehood on November 1st, 1966, when it got separated from Punjab. It shares its border with Himachal, Punjab, Rajasthan, UP, and Delhi. So, one of the many impacts of sharing borders with other states is the composite culture that comes with it. So, therefore, there are 5 linguistic zones on the basis of dialects. The central, northern, southern, western, and eastern linguistic zones, with the UP, Rajasthan, and Punjab having major influences. Haryana boasts a rich oral tradition deeply rooted in its agrarian society. So, when we talk about Lok Geet or the folk songs, which are an integral part of Haryanvi society, there are different types of songs for occasions, different occasions like ceremonial songs and seasonal and festive songs. Ceremonial songs like on the day of birth, there is the Thali Bajana and Chhadi Ke Geet, which is on the 6th for the 6th day of birth, and Pilya Ke Geet, which is for the 40th day of birth. And marriage ceremony song like Lagan ke geet, Banna Banni ke geet, Bhat ke geet, etc. So there are many different songs, and seasonal songs like on the days of Navratri, there are Devi Durga Geet, Teej ke Geet in Savan, Ahoy ke Geet, and Fagan ke Geet, that is Holi ke Geet in the month of Falgun, that is around February, March. And now when we talk about Ragini, which is like Haryana has a very rich canvas of Lokgit, and Ragini is one such bright color on that canvas. It is a very distinct feature of Haryana's social and cultural fabric. It is not only sung but performed by a singer or more. It consists of a take, which is the central idea, and take finds its explanation in form of kali, and the concluding idea is called tor. Ragini mostly contains the name of the singer, writer, and the guru who teaches the singer. And like Ragini is more than a century old, and like Ben Amos said, it is an artistic communication. It has been a medium to communicate necessary changes and used by governments to promote governmental schemes. It condemns the society through irony and satire. Therefore, the themes that of Ragnis originate from and are related to the social, economic, religious, and cultural life of Haryana. The setting of the performance back in the day was the social gatherings or the community chopals, but now they are mostly sponsored by people. So one of the famous names in the context of Ragni is of Pandit Lakshmi Chand. He's kind of a pioneering figure who used Ragni in his songs to entertain the masses. He introduced the themes of beauty, love, romance, and Ragni. So before I move forward with Ragini, I like to give a brief introduction to Sang, which is a musical dance performance. Um, Sang is musical in nature, and it contains acting and dialogue, whereas Ragini is more of a poem which is presented. It contains narration as well, like Sang, but they are significantly different. But in present context, some people like to use them exchangeably, like so. But so the instrument which are used in Ragni are harmonium and other pot covered with rubber, as you can see in the picture. I hope you can see. But nowadays dholak and keys are also included in it. Some of the famous singers, Ragni singers, whose Ragnis are still used to this day and sung are Pandit Lakshmi Chand, Pandit Mange Ram, Dhanpat Singh, Krishna Vyasji. They are they were the first who actually made Ragini famous in Haryana and among North India. And now I would like to play this video of invocation that I recorded on my field trip. Are you able to listen? Is it audible?
Yes,
Yeah.
you can play.
So, this is the invocation of Ma Saraswati that with Harinam as the
Vaishali, the sound has gone. Sound of the video.
let me just play it again. Is it audible now?
No.
No. Okay, then I should, I think, move forward with it. I'll play another video for you. So this is the stage setting of a Ragni performance, in which those singers, chorus, and music players are all sit on one stage, and this is Saraswati Vandana, which Hariram Baislaji was teaching his student. I'll play this for you. And in this video, I particularly want you to notice the rhythm and tone of Ragni and how it is sung. And the things that make it different from the popular music or the music in general.
There is no audio.
There is no audio.
The audio for the presentation in your setting is muted, so that's why it's not sharing.
Do you know where can I turn it on?
Please carry on with your presentation. We will look into it.
Okay. So this was Saraswati Vandana, and this is the live Ragini performance, which is recorded on YouTube. And so I don't think I can play it as well, so I'll just move forward. Now I will be talking about Ragini on social media. When we talk about Ragini on social media, the first thing that comes to mind is how it is presented and how it is consumed by the people. So as you can see, Ragini shots are pretty famous. I hope you can see. The Ragini shots are pretty famous. They have views and they engage people in different way than or long videos, and they have comments, likes, and shares, most importantly, which long videos kind of lack. So and they actually act as a teaser for the actual Ragni videos, and on the other side, the longer Ragni videos are available in audio and video recordings of live performances, but comparatively, shorts are more liked by people. So now we'll talk about the struggles of Ragini. Despite the richness of folk culture, it faces the challenges compared to its neighbor cultures. Both Punjabi and Rajasthani folk excelled in getting global recognition and commercialization of their folk culture, thereby helping the artist as well. However, Ragni not only faces competition from other regional folk tradition, but contemporary entertainment forms, but also from its own burgeoning cousin Haryanvi pop music. So while Ragni's presence remains largely confined to YouTube with a variety of artists, another compounding issue is the tendency to categorize all vernacular music as folk. So Haryanvi pop music is a big coming out as a big problem for Ragini, because nowadays Haryanvi pop music is gaining a lot of recognition, and it is shared, and it is played in north on most parts of North India, with Punjab, Haryana, Delhi, and all the neighboring states. But it is giving competition to Ragni because it is short, its beats are catchy, but Ragni is very traditional in nature. So and if we talk about the Ragini's performance on social media, so there you can see that when we when we search Haryanvi Ragini on Instagram, and so there is multiple pages open up, but the content on these pages are very limited. Even tags, when we open, there are Raganis, but the posts are some are old, but tags are relatively more engaging than the pages. They don't post that much on these pages. Like in this, we can see that all these posts are old, 22, 23, and very low engagement in context of Ragini. And on these online streaming music streaming platforms, um, the problem is that they categorize all vernacular music as folk. So even though they have curated playlists and artists, they have very limited content, and the all Haryanvi songs are labeled as folk. So this labeling and this is kind of a problem for the way Ragni is consumed by the people. And same problem goes with Spotify, Apple Music. And now how Ragini is coping up to this tradition change. So Chatpati Ragini, I have used the word Chatpati because I had the honor of interviewing one of the Ragini singer, writer, and composer, Shri Hariram Beslaji in Haryana. So he uses the word Chatpati Ragini in the sense that the themes of Ragini earlier used to be very, moralistic. They used to have scriptures, Puranic themes, and used to have moral stories of from mythology. But now the audience preferences are changing, and they want more of the Chatpati Ragni. That means that which is more light-hearted and entertaining Ragnis. So to tackle this situation, Ragini has adapted in several ways. The content, theme, and style, and the way of presentation of Ragini are adapting. So in online Ragini performances, even Bollywood songs are sung. The Ragini artists not only sing Ragini, but now they are performing to Bollywood songs and in Punjabi songs and all other songs to engage people as much as they can. Uh, so now one of the features, like I said, is that they used to Raganis are performances, and they used to be an hour long, but now they are becoming only 6 to 7 minutes long, like more like a song. And themes of love, beauty, and romance are very are included. But interestingly, when Pandit Lakshmi Chand started inculcating Ragini into his songs, he also started with writing about love, beauty, and romance. And then in the middle of ages, when Ragini was famous, other writers and singers started inculcating themes of mythology. And then it's like Ragini has come full circle. It was started uh, as a medium to entertain masses in between of songs, and now again uh, it has become a medium to entertain people.
Vaishali, I think you need to conclude. We are just running out of time. We have 1 more minute only for the next session.
Yeah, sure, I will conclude. So to conclude my presentation is I'd like to say that while social media and digital media helps in making folk music accessible, which is extremely important, but at the same time, like Andre Vazda and Zoltan Zoots argue that internet allows everyone to participate in the presentation of tradition, blurring the line between passive consumption and active creation. But this participatory nature, however, risks the erosion of tradition's authenticity. It makes a unique traditional art form into a homogeneous and presents a sanitized version of it. So to explain this point is that this Ragini that is on your screen is only 7 minutes long, and it is studio recorded. It is not live performed. So the singers are only lip syncing to it, which is, I think, a great idea. It contains the form, it contains the theme of the Ragini, but at the same time, this Ragini, there are two Ragini. The first one is a Ragini song, which is sung like a normal Haryanvi song, which only has language, Haryanvi language, and no elements of Ragini, no tonality, no rhythm of Ragini. Whereas this Haryanvi song, I wish I could have played with for you, but you can listen to it on the YouTube. So other Ragini, it has a very specific tone, rhythm. So what I'm trying to say is that when traditional art forms are presented on the social media, the platforms like YouTube, and there is a need to preserve them, So what we do is we present a homogeneous and sanitized version of it so that it can reach everybody. So this is one of the, I would say, demerits of digital media. So the Ragnis are, yeah. So
Vaishali, please conclude. We're already past our time.
yeah. So I think yeah, I'm done. Thank you.
Okay, I'm really sorry to not attending the question, but I will request again to the paper presenter that this session will continue. So you go to the chat box and still you can answer your question after this session also. And now I will look forward to Dr. Banusri for the closing remarks, and then we'll hand over for the next session. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mir, and Mritika Di. Thank you so much. So I feel the pertinent issues that was discussed, that how far folklore is a local phenomenon, and still because of mass culture and availability of mass media, folklore is being digitalized, and a new methods of preservation, or as Anne suggested, that alternative epistemologies are available. Then how we are going forward with community formation through digitalization of folklore. But again, the issue arises that how far those narratives would be authentic, and also online communities are being formed, but then how they are, the folklore, traditional folklore is being reinterpreted by by the people online. And also, digital platforms are, how far they are able to accommodate, the local phenomenon, and also, is there a loss of culture, or while adaptation, is there a loss happening to suit the taste of the global audience or to suit their understanding? So I think I should thank our paper presenters who have done a wonderful job. And I have learned a lot. And also, there are certain questions on ethics also in preservation and digitalization of folklore narratives, which we should ponder about. Thank you so much, everyone. And thanks to the organizers for inviting me as a chair. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody. And I will now, the volunteers also, I will now hand it over to Meghal and Bhumika for the next session. Meghal?